we're not going to let this cut us out of science yet.
Yeah. We deserve to be here. We're fighting tooth and nail, as first generation students, and being women in STEM, and we're really fighting for the passion that we have for science and the love we have for helping people.
Okay, who are you and how did you get into this situation?
Okay. Yeah, into this situation, yeah. So for those of you who have been following Maddie, my name is Jordan. I was in the same program as Maddie was in, and I was dismissed as well. I'm here today, and Maddie invited me here today to share with you kind of some of my experiences and what I went through. And Maddie also has some updates she would like to share with you.
Yeah, so starting off, I received an update about my appeal, and unfortunately the dean upheld the dismissal. I'm working on that with people at the school, and hopefully I'll have some more updates in the next week or two. I'm trying to set up a meeting in person with the dean to see what next steps I can go forward with, whether it is staying with the school or mastering out, or just kind of what options I have available. But I wanted to have Jordan come on and talk about her side of the story, because we're in very similar positions regarding our dismissal, relating to the funding climate and the program, just overall how the program handled the situation.
Yeah, and so I'm in a very similar situation to Maddie. Coming in from day one, I actually had struggles trying to find a lab to rotate in. I remember within the first week of classes, it was constantly meeting with PIs. There was even one day where I met with a PI, and he had 5 or 6 other students who met with him that same day as well. So it was really kind of competitive and cutthroat from really the first rotation, and trying to find rotations after that.
We both struggled finding a first rotation.
Essentially from the get-go, just like rough experiences finding rotations, and going back to them and being like it wasn't a good fit, or in most cases it was a matter of funding. For example, my third rotation went really, really well. I really liked the PI, he really liked me, but it came down to the point that he's an older PI, and even as something as simple as he wanted to run more of a post-op level lab. Okay, I'm not going to hold that against anybody, but it seemed like even, when Maddie and I were trying for fourth rotations, we were throwing options out the door. Like, well, we've met with new faculty, and new faculty are turning us down because, financial departments are saying that they can't take the risk of taking on rotation students, and so it's a no-go. So even PIs who were hoping to take even 2 rotation students, and PIs I knew very well, it was still a no. Like, it was a constant no.
And we came to the program with so many options, and we were constantly shut down with these options.
Yeah, to include like new PIs who, were just starting up their labs, and we knew it was going to take 6 months for them to start their labs up. Even coming back, at that point in time and trying a fourth rotation, then it was a no. And so ultimately, in my situation, I passed all of my classes. I did very well on the prelims. I got like the second highest score in our cohort, and unfortunately there was just no other option for me. So in my case, they did give me a dismissal letter. They turned around later on and decided to just let me withdraw, and I got pushed into a master's program, and so now I'm stuck paying for another 12 credit hours, when I was really hoping worst case scenario in what would be normal circumstances for PhD students, that they're in their second year, they've done all the required 30 credit hours or whatever, they would just be able to masters out. I'm at 26 credit hours, and I was 4 credit hours away, and they were unwilling to budge. So it was like, well,
them meaning the program. So there have been students who were in their second year and have mastered out with 4 more credit hours, and they can leave the program with a master's. However, in Jordan's case, the option that the program laid out for her was transfer, basically a forced withdrawal from the program in order to transfer her to a different program on campus to get that master's.
Yeah, and it kind of really sucks to get this far. Maddie and I were chatting, and You put so much of your life's work into this. You go through COVID, you're not able to find a research job, all the labs are shut down. You finally get that breakthrough once COVID ends, and you work and work and work. You apply, well, you don't have enough experience. You apply again, you finally get in, and you hear from, everybody. You hear from everybody. Like, I had heard from so many other people, so many other programs I'd interviewed at, even fellow students here on campus, that finding rotations is the easy part. Like, really, as long as you pass all your classes, you pass your prelims, there's really no
barrier to entry,
and hardly
rotation.
Anybody gets dismissed, and if you get dismissed, it's for some kind of severe violation or something.
Yeah. Going back to that, I want to share something our program director said to me months ago, back when we both learned that we needed a fourth rotation, or we were in this position because of the NIH funding and the current climate in science. But our program director said, you can get dismissed if you don't find a fourth rotation. However, I don't think it's going to come to that. And I think we're both sitting here and it came to that. So I think there's a lot to say where if the program doesn't fully support you, they really find ways to kind of push you along to a different space or put you in a different bureaucratic window within the same university.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard not to feel like a little mixed about it, because I honestly do believe that they were being genuine and trying not to make it seem like they were, honestly trying not to be the bad guys, and and I can also understand it from a business perspective, but
it's just a very
complicated situation because there's so many emotions involved. You've worked so hard for this, right? The program was supportive in a lot of ways. I think that just comparing our situation to some of the other first year students who were able to stay in the program because their program had extra money set aside, their program,
advocated
for them and let them float until new PIs joined or had their labs up and running.
Or they were given the option of leaves of absences, where our program did not give that to us. And keep in mind, these are all the same program. These are all different programs within the same university. So there's a lot of differences. I think it depends on whether or not you get into a program that supports you in this climate right now.
Yeah, and in their defense, they were pretty tight on funds. I think given the fact that, they didn't have their T32, there wasn't a lot of extra support options for us, but I wish in our case at least a master's degree kind of would have been an option, give us a couple months to finish a master's degree out, given we had passed prelims and everything else, but that wasn't the case. But I think Maddie and I really just kind of wanted to make a video for any of you first years, just about to start your PhD programs, about to move, or anything else like that. I think I would really reconsider just the academia climate as it is now, because you could very well find yourself in the same position that Maddie and I, having worked so hard for something and being dismissed for something as simple as well, we don't have the money for you anymore.
Right.
It doesn't matter that you've passed everything. It doesn't matter that you've done well, but
we had no formal issues or formal complaints within our department or the university. It's just, it's really unfair on many levels. And I know that a lot of first years are moving. It's the summertime and you're looking forward to starting, but this is what's going on in science right now. And I think if you don't have a program that is willing to step up and support you in the situation that we got into, then I think you should find those safety nets within your university and open this dialogue earlier than the end of the year, because I think in both of our cases we really trusted how the program would handle things, and we trusted the options we were given. And when it came down to it at the last minute, those options were not available anymore. And I think that's why we're both here, trying to figure out our next steps in the best way that we both can.
Yeah, and I think it's important that if I was a first year in those shoes in your shoes right now, honestly, I would have backed away. I would have stayed being a PRA. I would have found some other employment. I would have done something else until the academia, the funding situation is better. I mean, in our case, no one could have predicted, halfway through our first year, that there would have been, such severe NIH cuts, but it's having pretty drastic repercussions. I mean, granted, I'm very thankful to have been able to transfer into the master's program and, use some kind of connection that the pharmacology program gave me to be able to get into, to transfer all of my credits and not have like a 40% cap. So I only have 12 left, but 12 credits for a graduate program is still a lot of money, especially when you're all of a sudden faced with unemployment and no medical insurance.
And I think it's important to add that for both of us, we were not given like formal notice when our stipends were going to end, when our medical insurance was going to end. I think we were both really blindsided by what the program's lack of communication in the grad school on a whole, with like next steps. And it felt like all the options for both of us were kind of pieced together last minute without any formal protocol, and just like people saying things, people in different offices saying things.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, I think that like we've both hit a point where we were kind of hoping, like similar to COVID, that the universities have known that this has been going on since like February. So,
and they told us back in February, they said if it comes down to it, we have funds that we can allocate from different areas within the university to support research.
Yeah.
We're both PhD students at a medical hospital, so the university said they would allocate funds from the medical side like they did during COVID to support students in our position. That never happened. And to add to that, we are not the only ones who are dismissed or put on a leave of absence. There are at least
tons of people.
Yeah, we're friends with like at least 5 of our friends, at least, that we know of.
I want to say it was like 10 first years, like throughout all of the PhD programs, and take into context that we were also a smaller university, so at bigger universities, I know that this is a trend too. Even the program director, who I had meetings with him before I got dismissed, it was pretty much just like, yeah, your case is not unique, but they were at least willing to write me like a letter of support, like for going in for like job interviews in the master's program and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because I genuinely did try, and I loved the program. I loved the research, loved everything. It's just when these NIH cuts they hit, everything just became increasingly like more competitive. And like when you're a first generation student like with a disability, facing also like during that time, like I was facing some very personal private family matters, and being the one to take care of like your elderly loved ones and things like that. It just kind of became like
the support wasn't
there really. And it just became way more cutthroat than I would have ever thought. Even between like people within my own cohort who you're supposed to be friends with.
Yeah.
And so really, I think Maddie and I just kind of wanted to make this video to give you an update and say, like, even in cases where you did your very best and you tried your absolute hardest and you gave it 150%, like, even when I was sick, I still showed up, even when unfortunately, like, my mother passed away, and that was the last family member grandmother, but she raised me, passed away, and she was really, like, the only family I had left outside of my 2 siblings. Like, that was it. That was it. Like, that was my support network. Like, even through all of that, and I still passed and did everything that I possibly could have done, except securing a 4th rotation, and that is ultimately what being dismissed.
Yeah. These were the official grounds of dismissal.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk at all about like being a first generation or being a scientist with a disability?
Yeah.
If you're comfortable with that?
So I think like being a first generation, I grew up on a farm, so middle of nowhere out here. I would think I was just always curious about like the natural sciences and things like that. And growing up out there, the only really science that you hear about is like from your high school biology, high school chemistry classes, and then hospitals, like rural hospitals, like going to the doctors and things like that. So from a very young age, like being raised by a single dad and my grandparents, education was really pushed on me. And it was something I loved. I was a bookworm growing up. I loved reading books, loved studying, all of that. And so naturally, when I graduated, I went straight into college here.
Did you take community class?
I did, yeah. I did community college, but I did it through one of the local farm community colleges, and I got my associates before I graduated from high school, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
2 weeks before I graduated from high school. Yeah. And I just loved it. Loved every minute that I was there. Majored in biology, thinking I wanted to go into med school, and then kind of changed my mind throughout. Thought I was going to pursue the nursing course. Got my CA license, did all of that, graduated. Graduated back in 2017. Unfortunately, had some life circumstances, so just ended up working for a couple years. And then when I wanted to get back into research, then kind of pivoted a little bit. Then COVID hit, and there was nothing. So I worked for a small kind of biotech consulting company. Loved that for a couple years, and then once the labs opened up, then I used my network to get into a postbac program. Spent 2 years there doing research, trying to find an area I loved. Happened to have been cancer. Loved the cancer lab I worked in. And then that ultimately led me to my research experiences led me to the pharmacology program. Just from the pharmaceutical companies I worked with in consulting, and then just the research that I did.
So this was years in the making.
Years in the making, my whole life in the making. And it's and then going from losing all of your support system during this time, from things like mental health issues, undiagnosed conditions from just having a small rural farm town doctor, and then losing my grandma ultimately to colon cancer, and then having to just figure everything out within these last couple of months. And it just is hard not to feel like the rug has been ripped out from under you, really ripped out from under you. I mean, I think
it's
once things got competitive, then it felt in some instances it felt like my disability was really held against me in certain environments, and that lack of empathy was gone.
It was really unfair.
It was just gone. And I never used the excuse with them I have so much, I can't do this, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. I always showed up, and I always gave it 110%.
Yeah,
110%.
Jordan really did. Jordan was always showing up, even when there were things going on, health issues within her family that made it really, really difficult for anyone to go through, let alone your first year of the PhD.
Yeah. I remember going to, having the funeral on a Monday. We had an exam on Wednesday, and I did that exam. We got a final. So the funeral was Monday. We had 2 classes. One of our classes our first class, we had a final exam given to us Tuesday that we had to have turned in by the end of the week. And then we had an oral, final exam presentation pretty much for our second class. And that second class gave a last written exam that was due in March.
We crushed it.
And I did that all within that same week, to put it into perspective.
Yeah, which was insane. I don't know how you made it.
I don't know how I did it either. I just powered through. But I think really Maddie and I are here to tell you that despite all the grit, the determination, the perseverance, the passion, the love for science and the love for research and things like that, ultimately, at the end of the day, in our circumstance, it wasn't enough it wasn't enough without having the business aspect of having a fourth rotation. And I think we really just wanted to make this video, for all you first years coming into the PhD program, to really sit down and before you move, before you do any of this, have a really heart to heart with your program directors about what this year is going to look like for you, and
what safety nets do you have.
And if you don't have any, that's okay. Maybe the program doesn't have the funds for you to have a safety net, but if they don't have the funds for you to stay on, what are the options that they're willing to give you so that you can be more prepared?
And these should be outlined.
And they should be outlined
before you become stuck in an emergency position or in a position like us where, I mean, these also should be outlined and like followed, because we were both given some options that were ultimately, like the leaves of absences, that were ultimately not available.
I think we're just here to say, talk to your program directors, really make sure you know everything, you know, kind of before you commit. And even if you do commit, or you're in that gap of like, I'm not sure if things are going to work out, my advice to you is, if you find yourself in that position like 6 months into your PhD, start job searching 6 months in, because I have been job searching, I want to say, since like June, and I haven't been able to find anything.
I think even early. Didn't you start job searching?
I started in May when I heard from the third rotation, when we finished the third rotation, kind of beginning towards mid-May, that he wasn't going to take me, or I mean, he didn't take the other graduate student rotating either, but any rotation students, and I haven't been able to find a job since then, and I'm still searching. I mean, thankfully in my case, you know,
like 2 months.
It's been, and so it's been a long time, and unfortunately in my case, or I should say fortunately in my case, you know, I was just kind of like, well, I'm just going to withdraw then, like, I'm going to go into a master's program. Not ideal because I have to pay for it, but I kind of felt the pressure of like not wasting any time.
Yeah.
You know, like Madi. Like, I really wanted to do an appeal, but there was that caveat of like, if you do an appeal, then you can't transfer into a master's program.
And I feel like that was not outlined. Even the whole, you know, we weren't aware that you had to withdraw in order to get into a master's program. So the fact that I was dismissed means I cannot, as it stands, transfer into a master's program. But even this was not outlined to us until this all started happening.
Well, back to Madi's point, you know, kind of about the withdrawal. I think the withdrawal was given to me in the circumstances that they kind of already knew that I was just done. Like, I was like, no more. Like, I don't want to sit here. I don't want to play these games anymore. Like, if this isn't an option for me, I'm going to push on and move on. I'm still going to fight on the back end.
Yeah.
And I still am, but I'm just going to push on and move forward. And
you've done a great job.
in my case, that's all I can do. But yeah, first years out there, just maybe reconsider the state of the current science funding. You know, I went to my master's orientation a couple weeks ago, a couple days, I can't remember. I don't know, time flies by so fast. But, you know, we've heard from even current students in our cohort, and even faculty, multiple faculty
in our program.
Who were like, what are we going to do with the new students coming in? I'm like, you can't even support the students you have now. What are you going to do with the new students coming in?
I don't know. Just know that this is the climate that
you're getting into.
And
it may be wise to wait for your PhD admissions a couple years longer until like the funding situation gets better.
Yeah, think about exit plans. Like, have a proper exit plan, because I think for both of us, we didn't really come to terms with we needed an exit plan, and when we needed an exit plan, it was too late. So come into this year with an exit plan, with some backup support, whether it's in your hometown or in the new town that you moved to.
Yeah, and if you need to, like, of course, like, reach out to Madi, reach out to me. I know a lot of you guys who have been following Madi. You've seen her TikTok, or you've seen her GoFundMe, so please donate. Madi also encouraged me to make a GoFundMe, so followers of Madi, if you feel it in your heart, I would really appreciate it. Madi is going to post a link, but I think you could also just search like from farm girl to future scientist. That's my GoFundMe. But yeah, I worked so hard to get here, and
that's not an understatement. I saw how Jordan just took this year and turned it into progress despite all the hurdles she went through, and the program really wasn't available all that much through these hurdles, and she made it through them, and it's been amazing how she's reached this point, given all that's been going on with science and in her life. And if you feel like you have extras to support, please donate to Jordan's fund. It'll go towards her master's degree, and also living costs, because we're not getting a stipend anymore. Actually, do you want to talk a little bit about how we couldn't work more than 10 hours a week in our PhD? So this is another thing about, at least in the PhD fields that we were in, we couldn't work more than 10 hours or have a second job. So while getting our stipend. I know not all PhDs are like this, and I know it's unfair for those of you getting masters or educational PhDs. I know it's different, but in our case, our university was at risk of losing funds if we were to work more than 10 hours because our commitment was essentially a research position job. So really, all this is to say we were pretty blindsided into having to transition out of the stipend supported environment back to a regular working position job. So all the donations are really kind of supporting us through this time, supporting the master's degree in Jordan's case, and hopefully in my case I'll know
and just please share the video, like even if you can't donate.
Sharing helps.
Of course, just share, because I think, you know, Maddie and I, of course, like, we really want to prevent this from happening to, like, other PhD students. If you have friends thinking about going into PhD programs, if you have friends like working on their applications to PhD programs, or people you know going into their first year, like, or going, you know, about to graduate with their master's degree, thinking about going into PhD program, please share this video with them, because they really deserve to know kind of what the landscape is like.
We're trying to be like as transparent as possible, and I feel like in our situations everything was not as transparent, and I would have loved knowing this. I mean, of course the times changed with the current administration, and science did a 180, and but essentially we're just trying to support people and be transparent as possible.
We really want to prevent people ending up in our same situation, knowing that it's you know, you guys are walking into a funding climate that's going to be very, very tough, way tougher than what Maddie and I have experienced this year. Like, it's going to be a whole nother ballpark. Like, I struggled finding a rotation with just, you know, one person meeting with one PI meeting with like 6 students the same day. You're probably going to have that same PI who is going to meet with, like, say, like 10 or 12 students that same day, that same week. Who knows? Like, it's
the degree of
rough.
Competitiveness has ratcheted up, unfortunately, and it was already very, very competitive to begin with. So just be aware of that.
So we'll keep you guys updated on how things progress. Maddie and I both will. Probably Maddie more so than me, but I'll check in every now and then.
I'll share an update with Jordan and tell you where she's at.
But no, we really appreciate you guys and the support, and
it's been a lot to us. Like, this is like a very disorienting, terrible time in our careers right now, and like just the support. And I've shared your support with Jordan too. For those of you who've watched my TikToks, that means so much, and it's really helped us like push forward and be strong and carry us through, and show that there are people who think that we still deserve a place in science, and we're not going to let this stop us. I mean, we're in this position, but we're still going to be scientists, and
I'm still pushing through.
We'll make it. So anything, like, share, whatever you feel comfortable with, we really appreciate, and we will share an update in the next few weeks, hopefully.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.